They say silence is empty, but those who truly understand life know that silence is where the greatest battles are fought. A man does not become unstoppable by shouting at the world, or by demanding respect from others, or by constantly explaining himself to those who don't care to listen. No, he becomes unstoppable in silence, when no one is watching, when no applause is given, and when no validation is offered. It is in silence where men break, and it is in silence where men are reborn. Think about it. The moments that shape you the most are not the ones in which the world was clapping for you. They are the nights when no one believed in you. They are the mornings when you woke up, alone, with nothing but the weight of your failures pressing down on your chest. It is in silence where the truth screams the loudest. It tells you exactly who you are, without filters, without masks, without excuses. Silence is brutal because it strips away every distraction, leaving you face to face with the man you truly are. That confrontation is what most men run from, but the few who face it, they become unstoppable. Because silence is where accountability lives. No one is there to tell you to get up. No one is there to remind you of your dreams. No one is there to hold your hand. It is you against the weight of your own weakness. Most men fold in that moment. They distract themselves with noise, with pleasure, with people who only feed their ego. But a man who embraces silence, who allows it to burn away his excuses, builds a discipline that nothing in the world can break. Silence teaches him to listen not to the chaos outside, but to the voice inside, the one that whispers, "You were made for more. Do not stop now." And here is the hard truth: the world does not care about your pain, your tears, or your story. It is cold, it is ruthless, and it will step on you if you let it. So, if you want to survive, no. If you want to rise, you must learn the art of being silent in your grind and loud in your results. Because silence trains you to detach from approval, to detach from the shallow applause of people who don't even matter. It turns you inward, forcing you to sharpen your mind, your will, your patience. Silence is not weakness. Silence is preparation. And when you prepare long enough in silence, one day you step into the world so sharp, so unshakable, that no one can stop you. But let me tell you why most men never reach that point. They can't stand being alone. They cannot bear the quiet. Because in the quiet, they hear the truth about their wasted potential. They hear the voice reminding them that they said they'd change, but they didn't. They hear the haunting echo of the man they could have been. So instead of sitting in silence and facing that pain, they run. They drown themselves in endless noise. Social media, parties, shallow conversations, fake smiles, anything but silence. Because silence requires courage. Silence demands honesty. Silence will not lie to you, and for most men, that is unbearable. But for the chosen few, for the men who decide that they would rather be broken in silence than distracted in noise, something powerful happens. They begin to transform. Every day in silence sharpens them. Every tear in silence hardens them. Every lonely night in silence builds a fire in them that no one can put out. They begin to understand that silence is not loneliness. It is training. It is not punishment. It is purification. And once a man has endured that purification, once he has stared his weaknesses in the face without flinching, he becomes unstoppable. Because nothing outside of him can ever be as brutal as what he faced inside of him. Silence is where warriors are made, not in crowds, not in stages, not in the cheers of fans, but in the quiet, where no one notices, no one congratulates, no one cares. That is where discipline is forged. That is where clarity is found. That is where men learn to command themselves. And a man who commands himself is a man no one can command. That is why silence builds unstoppable men. If you think about it, the most dangerous men in history were not the ones who spoke the loudest. They were the ones who said little, but whose actions shook the world. The silent worker, the man who disappears for a season, only to return so powerful, so disciplined, so refined, that everyone who doubted him is left speechless. That is the power of silence. It hides your growth. It conceals your strategy. It allows you to evolve in the shadows while the world sleeps on you. Then, when the time is right, you emerge, and no one can comprehend how you became who you are. But this requires sacrifice. Silence means you will lose people. Because people hate when you stop feeding their noise. They hate when you stop being available for their distractions. They hate when you no longer play the game of shallow validation. They will call you cold. They will call you distant. They will say you've changed, and they're right. You have changed. You've chosen silence over noise, growth over comfort, discipline over distraction, and that choice will cost you people, but it will give you yourself. This is why silence builds unstoppable men. Because it cuts away the unnecessary. It isolates you from the weak. It removes the voices that don't matter. And in that solitude, you start hearing the only voice that does matter, your own. You realize that your dreams were never meant to be understood by everyone. Your path was never supposed to be walked by the crowd. You were supposed to walk it alone, in silence, step by step, until the man you were becomes unrecognizable to the man you are becoming. And here's the beauty of it: silence not only builds strength, it builds patience. A man who learns to sit in silence becomes dangerous because he is not desperate. He does not rush. He does not beg. He knows that greatness takes time. He understands that everything has its season. And because he can wait, he cannot be broken. You cannot manipulate a man who is comfortable in silence. You cannot tempt a man who is satisfied with his own company. You cannot control a man who does not need your approval. That is why silence is feared, because it creates men who cannot be controlled. But silence is not easy. It will test you. It will feel unbearable at times. It will break you down before it builds you up. There will be nights when you question everything, when you wonder if the pain is even worth it. But it is in those nights that your character is forged. Pain endured in silence produces strength that noise can never give you. Every tear you shed in silence waters the seed of the man you are destined to become. And when that seed grows, it will break through the ground with such force that the world will have no choice but to notice. Silence is not passive. Silence is power under control. It is restraint. It is discipline. It is the choice to build quietly so you can conquer loudly. It is the refusal to waste energy explaining yourself to those who will never understand. It is the decision to let your results speak instead of your words. And when you live like that, you become unstoppable. Not because you avoided noise, but because you mastered yourself in the absence of it. There will come a day when all the nights of silence will make sense. There will come a moment when the people who doubted you will see what silence built in you. They will wonder how you endured. They will wonder how you transformed. They will wonder how you became untouchable. But you will know. You will know that it was the lonely nights, the silent tears, the battles no one saw, that gave birth to your strength. You will know that silence was your ally, not your enemy. And you will carry a power inside you that nothing external can match. Understand this: the world is loud because it is weak. People shout because they are insecure. They crave validation because they do not believe in themselves. But you, if you embrace silence, you rise above that. You no longer need the world's approval, because you've already been tested in the fire of solitude. You no longer fear failure, because you've already faced the harshest truth about yourself and survived it. You no longer depend on anyone to push you, because you've already learned how to push yourself when no one was around. That is what makes you unstoppable. So, if you are in silence right now, do not despise it. Do not run from it. Do not numb it. Embrace it. Sit in it. Let it shape you. Let it break you. Let it rebuild you. Because one day, that silence will speak louder than anything you could ever say. One day, the man who was forged in silence will stand in the light, and his very presence will demand respect. He won't have to scream. He won't have to explain. He won't have to prove. His silence will have already done the work. Silence builds men who are not moved by rejection. Silence builds men who are not broken by betrayal. Silence builds men who are not seduced by comfort. Silence builds men who walk alone, yet carry the strength of armies within them. Silence builds men who no longer seek the world's validation, because they have already validated themselves through struggle, discipline, and sacrifice. Silence builds unstoppable men, and when you become that man, the world will notice. Not because you begged for attention, not because you shouted your worth, but because silence made you undeniable. The loudest man in the room rarely holds the most power. The one who speaks less, but carries weight when he moves. That is the man everyone feels. That is the man everyone respects. That is the man no one can stop. So remember this: do not fear silence. Fear the noise that keeps you from hearing yourself. Do not fear loneliness. Fear the crowd that keeps you from your purpose. Do not fear being unseen. Fear being noticed for the wrong things. A man who masters silence becomes a man who masters himself, and a man who masters himself becomes unstoppable. And that, more than anything else, is why silence builds unstoppable men.